The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com. All right, welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky, and joining us on the SportsTownChicago.com hotline is Chris Simpson of the Daly Blitz. Chris, thanks again for calling in.
Not a problem. Ryan Stuprich, it's been a while, man.
Yes, it has. I was sick last week, so it was just you and Ryan last week. But I'm back, I'm feeling good, and there certainly is a lot to talk about. We'll start off sort of recapping what happened last week in the crazy NFL playoff games. Let's start with the craziest one. Seattle at Minnesota. Blair Walsh misses that field goal just point blank at the end. What's your reaction to that game?
I mean, look, you can't put all the blame on him. Yeah, he missed the kick, but he had them in the game. I know they didn't score any touchdowns because of the weather. That really played a factor in it, but he kicked 3 field goals, and he had them in control for most of that game. He just missed the most important one, and that would have had them advance to the next round.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing, you got to feel bad for him, too, because, I mean, it's probably not on the same level of Billy Cundiff missing that field goal against the Patriots. That would have sent the game to overtime to try to go to the Super Bowl. Except it was a chip shot, and it's really tough seeing someone lose a game like that. Except, do you think that Seattle's going to beat the Panthers this weekend?
I do, because I think now this is a different Seattle Seahawks team that they're going to see compared to what they saw in Week 6. I still think that Seahawks team early in the year, they were still trying to figure out their identity, learn how to play with one another, and they gave up over 160 yards passing to Cam Newton in a quarter. In a quarter, not the game, a quarter,
right?
Which is horrible. That's un-Seahawk-like. I just think they're more disciplined now. We don't know if Marshawn's going to play, but I think their offense is going to be able to move the ball down the field a lot better than what they did on Sunday against Minnesota. And I think if I'm Seattle, you got to come out and you got to take away Greg Olsen. You got to double him, especially in the red zone. Take away Ted Ginn Jr. Those are Cam Newton's 2 top targets down the field. And if I'm Carolina, you're not going to beat Seattle by throwing screen passes to your running backs because their defense is just so athletic, and they can stop just about anything that's thrown in their direction. You got to take shots down the field on this secondary.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Let's move over real quick to the other NFC matchup, which will be Green Bay going into Arizona. And we saw what happened a couple weeks ago when Arizona just destroyed Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Do you think there's going to be a different result this time?
I think it's going to be a differently played game. I think Green Bay is going to make their adjustments. I think they're going to come out a lot more balanced. Without Jordy Nelson, they've made it a point of emphasis to run the football. They can't stretch the field and take shots down the field like they would with Jordy Nelson. Randall Cobb is good. You get him going. Richard Rodgers, he's made a few big catches down the stretch for the Green Bay Packers. But I think this is just going to come down to protecting Aaron Rodgers because the last time they met, he was sacked 9 times. 9 times, and they only scored 8 points. I think this is going to be a much different game. I think Green Bay is going to score more than 8 points, but I think Arizona prevails. I just think the Cardinals are the most complete team right now in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they honestly probably would be my pick to win the Super Bowl, and it probably will be much closer. Green Bay has so much playoff experience that they probably won't let what happened at the end of the season happen in the playoffs.
No, I don't think they will. I just think it was a lack of discipline across the board for that entire team in every phase of the game. They put no pressure on Carson Palmer. The wide receivers, they were just running all over that Packers defense. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't stop anybody. Really, I don't think they got 1 sack on Carson Palmer. So I just think they're going to make their adjustments. They're watching that game film, and they're going to know what they're going to have to do to get past and prevail.
Now, speaking of undisciplined play, how about the Bengals at the end of that game against the Steelers?
Yeah, you talk about undisciplined. That's exactly what that was. You got to – look, I'm at a loss of words still just even thinking about it and talking about it. I think the one thing – Yeah, you can put the blame on the players all you want, but at the end of the day, you guys know who it's going to go back to.
The head coach.
The head coach. And Marvin Lewis, I just thought he was way too conservative for my liking late in that game, because I think if that were a coach like a Bill Belichick or a John Harbaugh, Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, I just think that would have been avoided and that wouldn't have happened. I mean, you pretty much gave them a chip shot to win that game, and you got to keep composure. Knowing how Joey Porter was as a player, he's still that way now as a coach. He's a hothead. He's a guy that likes to get under people's skin, and that's exactly what he did. He got under Adam Jones' skin. It worked. They got the flag. And as a player, you can't worry about those coaches coming on the field. They're on the sidelines for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. So the Steelers win, and now they go into Denver, and that's going to be a battle of two beat-up quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger and Peyton Manning. And Manning says he seems okay, but that could be a real battle in that game.
Yeah, it could. And you know what? When Peyton played against San Diego a few weeks ago, he didn't look bad. He was able to step into passes. He had zip on the ball. He hit his receivers in stride, things he wasn't really able to do early on in the year because he had that foot problem. He had sore ribs, and look, I've had the injury with sore ribs, and there's nothing you can do on a football field when your ribs are aching. It's impossible to move. You got to pivot, and people are going to hit you in that area most of the time. But I think the most important thing that I take away from that is the fact that he didn't throw any interceptions.
Right, that had been a point of emphasis throughout the season with him throwing interceptions, and he probably looked as good as he had all season. And back to the Bengals, what were your thoughts on Pac-Man Jones's comments towards Antonio Brown after he just destroyed him in the head and then called him for faking?
I mean, I just think he was a little ticked off in the heat of the moment right there. Your emotions get the best of you. He said he was faking because he did have a little grin on his face after he hit him, but right now I'm hearing it's not looking good for Antonio Brown to play in this game. So that right there should speak volumes more than any comment that Pac-Man can make at this point. And look at it like this. Antonio's team is playing next week. Pac-Man's isn't.
That's true. And the Steelers, they arguably had probably one of the best, most explosive offenses in the NFL. Bell's out for the season at running back. We don't know if D'Angelo Williams is going to play. Brown has a concussion. It doesn't sound good for him, and Roethlisberger has torn ligaments in his throwing shoulder.
Yeah, and he's been known to play injured over the last couple of years, and pretty much throughout his career. He's a tough quarterback. He's a tough guy. But he even told Ty Haley on Saturday, I can't throw the ball further than 15 yards down the field. So call screen passes, call dump offs. That's probably as far as I can get it. And I don't think he's yet to throw a football this weekend. So it's up in the air right now, and there may not be Antonio Brown. I think Denver wins this game. I just think this is the most complete team that the Denver Broncos have had in the playoffs since Peyton Manning's been there.
Right, and I would also say I think if Osweiler was starting, I think the Broncos still win this game just because the Steelers are just banged up. They really shouldn't have beat the Bengals, but they ended up winning. And, yeah, I think no matter who the quarterback is for the Broncos, I think they have a good shot to win and move to the AFC Championship.
Yeah, I think they do, too. And if Peyton struggles, I don't even hesitate on putting Brock Osweiler back in the game because the kid's shown you that he can play, and he's going to be their quarterback when Peyton hangs it up. Yeah,
absolutely. Now let's talk about the other AFC matchup.
Okay.
The red-hot Kansas City Chiefs go into New England. Can anybody beat New England at home? That's the real question.
I think it's these Kansas City Chiefs. That's the way I look at it. I just, nobody's afraid to play the Patriots this year, okay? And my reason for saying that is their pass protection is abysmal. Tom Brady, he makes a lot of frustration throws. Defensively, outside of Malcolm Butler and the front seven, the rest of the secondary is struggling to get anything happening. And I just think right now, you look at the Chiefs, they're hot. They're an old school football team. They're not flashy. They just play downhill, physical football. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm coming out in straight man-to-man coverage across the board. And this is where I think the Dion Lewis injury is really going to hurt the New England Patriots the most because not only was he Tom Brady's solid number 3 option down the field, he could pass the block as well. Now you insert James White. He can run the ball. He can catch it out the backfield, but he can't block. He couldn't block a girl off social media if he tried to. So if I'm Kansas City, I'm exploiting that matchup, straight man-to-man coverage across the board, and I want a one-on-one opportunity with him. That's the only way I think they beat Tom Brady. They can get up the middle, flush him out the pocket, and also Julian Edelman. How 100% is he? He's coming off that foot injury. If I'm a defender on Kansas City, I'm forcing him to push off and really test that foot.
Now, with going to Kansas City's offense, if Jeremy Maclin can't go, do you think Alex Smith can really win a playoff game against Tom Brady? Because it looked like Alex Smith was feeling more comfortable as he was trusting Jeremy Maclin more, and now he might not have him.
Yeah, but you know what? Before, when Kansas City did have receivers that could catch the ball on the outside before Jeremy Maclin got there, there's been one guy that Alex Smith has been able to throw the football to, and he goes by the name of Travis Kelce. He's a top 5 tight end. He spaces the field. He draws a lot of attention. He's that threat that you can just look at over the middle. He creates mismatches all over the field. He's their Gronk.
Yeah, he certainly is their Gronk. And, of course, we wanted to ask you, since, in the Chicago area, we wanted to ask you about your take on the Bears' new offensive coordinator, Dowell Loggins.
Well, I know he knows Adam Gates' system pretty well, and I know he's on the same page with Jay Cutler. So I think it's not too bad of a loss. Adam Gates deserves this head coaching opportunity. He should have got one about 2 or 3 years ago, if you ask me. He finally got it. Now you bring in this guy to run the Bears offense. I think they're going to be fine. Hopefully they can re-sign Alshon Jeffrey.
Yes.
And most importantly, Kevin White's coming back.
That is very important, and they have another high draft pick. And since you're a Giants fan, before we let you go, what do you like the promoting Ben McAdoo to offense or to head coach?
No, I don't. I don't at all. I just don't think he fits the making of a head coach. I personally thought Hugh Jackson would have been really good for the Giants, but he took the Cleveland job.
Yeah, he might regret that someday.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
All right, Chris, before we let you go, where can we find your work on social media, and tell us about your website?
Facebook.com/Daily Blitz, that's the fan page, at DailyBlitz_61, that's the Twitter handle, and we're doing playoff previews right now on the website, www.DailyBlitz61.com.
Sounds good, Chris. Thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you next week about the championship games.
Not a problem. Have a good one, boys.
You too.
Yep.
That was Chris Simpson of the Daily Blitz. Again, as you heard, you can follow him on Twitter as the Daily Blitz, at the Daily Blitz 61, and check out their game previews at the DailyBlitz61.com. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to discuss maybe a little more football and then get into some baseball, remaining free agents, and ask the question, have the Cubs added enough pitching? So that's all come up in the second hour of the Sports Renegades on SportsTownChicago.com.
The Sports Renegades podcast on SportsTownChicago.com.